Good evening and thank you for joining us. Patients had to endure long waiting time at accident and emergency departments of multiple public hospitals today. Some had to spend more than 8 hours to see a doctor. Some family doctors say many flu patients have contracted the virus while traveling overseas and are expecting more similar cases around the Christmas holiday. At Kwang Wah Hospital in Mongkok, the waiting time for patients at the Accident and Emergency Department this Sunday morning topped 8 hours. Many patients displayed flu symptoms. This woman said it's a Sunday, so she had to bring her elderly family members suffering from chronic illnesses to a public hospital to see the doctor. This man said they had to use the A&E services at public hospitals out of emergency health issues. Apart from Kwang Wah Hospital, the waiting time at A&E departments of Pamela Youth Nethersole Eastern Hospital and Prince of Wales Hospital also exceeded 8 hours. According to the latest surveillance data from the Center for Health Protection, the city's influenza activities have stayed at a low level, meaning caseloads have remained subdued. However, one of Hong Kong people's favorite travel destinations, Japan, has recorded a sharp rise in flu cases in recent days. Family Dr. Lam Wing-Wall said he has observed an uptick in flu cases starting last Friday. He believes most have contracted flu during their travel. He said 5 of his patients, all recently returned from Japan, displayed flu symptoms, including bone pain and fever. Lam said with more travel and social gatherings during Christmas, coupled with cooler temperatures, there would likely be a flu outbreak. He said the number of people who have been vaccinated against flu this year has increased by 5 to 10% compared with last year. But Lam reminds that the vaccination rate of high-risk groups, including children between 6 months and 3 years old, still remains low. With that, Dr. Lam urged parents to bring their children to receive the flu jab as soon as possible. Police arrested a 46-year-old man after he was suspected of being involved in at least 13 cases of burglary. 11 cases were related to kindergartens. Sources say one of the kindergartens was Shintech Fraternal Association Learn Li Sao Yu Sha Tin in Taiwan. Another one was the CCC Fuk Yao Kindergarten and Childcare Center in Chunwan, and also the Song Kei Kindergarten in Kwai Chung. Police arrested the man on Saturday. Officers said the suspect has a syndicate background. He has now been charged with 12 counts of burglary and 1 count of attempted burglary. The case will be mentioned at Fanling Magistrates Courts on Monday. Christmas is a peak traveling season for Hong Kong people. A shopping mall representative remains positive about the spending power in the city over the holiday. Min Musang reports.
Christmas is around the corner. The shopping mall in Kwun Tong is full of festive decorations. Many residents came with their families and friends to spend Sunday afternoon here. Some said they decided to spend the holiday in the city because of the atmosphere.
Very nice, very comfortable, very happy, jolly atmosphere, good. We've already done. I'm waiting for my wife and to come out.
Do you guys have a budget, a shopping budget?
Of course. See, any budget for a wife is always short. So I cannot give you an approximate budget.
People will go abroad. A lot of people have got family overseas. I think the economy is a bit weak at this time, and so people maybe don't have the same money to spend. So I can understand that shops are probably struggling. But for us, we just like to relax and stay in Hong Kong and come out and do a bit of shopping, buy some presents for the kids.
The small representative said they had invested $13 million in promotion for Christmas this year. She is positive about the consumption performance over this Christmas break.
With the support of the new policy, multi-entry visa, we found that there have quite a lot of Shenzhen tourists has made their visits to Hong Kong recently. By our observation, we can see that there are around close to 10% growth compared with last year.
While the 2 Christmas-related public holidays are on Wednesday and Thursday, residents can enjoy a break of up to 9 days if they ask employers for days off in between weekends.
Christmas is not celebrated on the mainland. Some mainlanders said it is easy for them to experience the festival because taking trains to Hong Kong is now convenient. The immigration department said nearly 460,000 locals left the city through different checkpoints on Saturday. Meanwhile, about 170,000 mainlanders arrived in Hong Kong. News 9, TVB News.
The leaders of 3 Palestinian groups say they believe a ceasefire in Gaza is closer than ever if Israel does not impose new conditions. This comes after Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine met with mediators in Egypt. A ceasefire after more than 14 months of war would involve the eventual withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza and the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Nasi Karim has more.
The Gaza skyline as it has been over more than 14 months. Explosion after explosion from Israeli airstrikes. Even as 3 Palestinian groups claim a ceasefire is imminent, the death toll inside continues to rise. Many Palestinians reported killed in airstrikes on central Gaza. Children and women were among the dead in a hit on an apartment in the Nusayrat refugee camp. More than 45,200 in Gaza have been killed since war erupted on October 7, 2023, after Hamas and other Palestinian groups launched an attack on Israel that resulted in around 1,200 deaths. Xinhua news agency initially quoted a Palestinian Islamic Jihad source as saying a ceasefire agreement will be finalized soon if Israel does not impose new conditions. The truce is based on a Biden administration proposal in May and calls for the gradual withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza and a prisoner for hostage exchange. Hamas later said that in agreement with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a ceasefire is closer than ever. Any truce in Gaza is likely to also halt hostilities between Israel and Yemen's Houthi group. But for now, the attacks continue with the Houthi missile breaching Israel's air defense system and hitting the Tel Aviv region. Ambulance, fire trucks and police sped to the scene as Israelis fled to shelters. Reports say 14 people were lightly injured in the rush, while another 16 were hurt by shattered glass. A Houthi spokesman later said the strike targeted a military facility. It's the second attack on Israel from Yemen in days and follows intense Israeli strikes on the Houthi-controlled capital Sana'a and the ports of Hodeidah, Salif and the Ras Isa oil terminal. Meanwhile, the United States Navy said an F/A-18 Super Hornet fighter jet was shot down by friendly fire over the Red Sea. The 2 pilots were recovered alive after ejecting. The warplane was from the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier. It was reportedly shot down by fire from the USS Gettysburg missile cruiser. The US Navy is engaged in intercepting projectiles fired from Yemen and is investigating how an F/A-18 was mistaken for an enemy aircraft. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
In Germany, a spontaneous memorial was created by grieving families and local residents at a church overlooking Magdeburg's Christmas market, the site of a car ramming attack where 5 people were killed and more than 200 others injured. The driver, a 50-year-old doctor who immigrated from Saudi Arabia in 2006, surrendered to police at the scene. The tone of the memorial reflected political tensions as the country is racked by arguments over immigration and the surging popularity of far-right groups. Tracy Furness has more.
This was a scene at the Christmas market in Magdeburg on Saturday. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited the scene and said 40 of the victims wounded in the attack were so seriously injured that we must be very worried about them. A far-right protest was held late Saturday in the city. Police estimated around 1,000 participants in a central square of Magdeburg in the state capital of Saxony-Anhalt. Homeland flags and banners could be seen. And there were a few minor scuffles with the police. The bells of Magdeburg Cathedral rang out for a service remembering those who were killed and the hundreds injured. No reason had been given for the attack.
The country is still in shock, struggling to understand why a man identified as a 50-year-old Saudi living in Germany for 2 decades would commit such an act. He's thought to be a former Muslim with a social media account filled with anti-Islam comments, and he was critical of Germany, saying the authorities had failed to do enough to combat what he called the Islamization of Europe. The suspect had also voiced support for Germany's main far-right and anti-immigrant party, the AfD.
A suspect had been arrested Friday after the attack on the Christmas market and was brought before a judge on Saturday night. German media outlets identified him as Taleb A, withholding his last name in line with privacy laws. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
In Beijing, the Foreign Ministry has warned the United States that any attempt to use Taiwan to contain China is doomed to failure. This after U.S. President Joe Biden authorized $571 million in defense support for Taiwan, and the State Department approved arms sales worth $295 million. A spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry said military assistance and arms sales to Taiwan seriously violate the One China principle. The statement said the decision is a severe breach of U.S. leaders' commitment to not support separatist forces in Taiwan. The spokesperson said China strongly deplores and opposes the decision and lodged solemn representations with the U.S. State broadcaster CCTV read out the statement, describing the U.S. decisions as dangerous moves that undermines peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. It described the U.S. moves as playing with fire. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has accused Panama of charging excessive rates for use of the Panama Canal. He said if Panama did not manage it properly, he would demand that the Central American country hand over control of the canal. In a post on Truth Social, Trump warned he would not let the canal fall into the wrong hands, while seemingly also warning of potential Chinese influence on the passage. He described fees charged by Panama as ridiculous and said the canal should not be managed by China. The post was a rare example of a U.S. leader saying he could push a sovereign country to hand over territory. The U.S. largely built the canal and administered territory surrounding the passage for decades. But the U.S. government handed over full control of the canal to Panama in 1999 after a period of joint administration. Former Taiwan leader Ma Ying-jeou continued his 9-day trip to mainland China. The former chairman of the island's Kuomintang party is leading a delegation of students to visit the provinces of Heilongjiang and Sichuan. It's day 5 of Ma's trip. The group visited Sanxingdui Museum in Sichuan on Sunday morning. Ma also met with the province's officials. He delivered a speech in Sichuan dialect, saying he hopes to help foster more cross-strait exchanges. Albania's prime minister said the government will shut down social media app Tik Tok for 1 year, blaming it for inciting violence and bullying, especially among children. It stems from the stabbing death of a teenager in November by another teen after a quarrel that reportedly started on TikTok. Prime Minister Edi Rama, speaking at a meeting with teachers and parents, said the shutdown begins sometime next year. Parents are concerned amid reports that children are taking knives and other items to school in arguments and bullying cases promoted by TikTok stories. TikTok, owned by Chinese company ByteDance, said it asked for urgent clarity on the case of the stabbed teenager. The company said it had found no evidence that the perpetrator or victim had TikTok accounts. Instead, it said reports confirmed that videos leading to the incident were posted on another platform. An elderly man was suspected to have drowned at Butterfly Beach in Tuen Mun. He was pronounced dead after being rushed to hospital. Police received a report at about 2 p.m. that a man in his 70s was suspected to have drowned at the Tuen Mun beach. He was taken to Tuen Mun Hospital in a coma after being recovered from shore. Police are investigating the cause of the accident. Hong Kong's Thai Pack floating seafood restaurant boasts a history of more than 60 years. It was slated to reopen after restoration around the third quarter of this year. While its pier nearby has reopened, the vessel remains shut owing to a court preservation order. After nearly half a century of operations, the ill-fated jumbo floating restaurant sank more than 2 years ago. It keeled over around the Paracel Islands or Shisha Islands while being towed away from Hong Kong. Jumbo sister vessel Thai Pack floating restaurant belongs to the same company. Thai Pack has ceased operations since a decade ago. Its last repair was undertaken 24 years ago. Its signboard and carvings inside stand as a testament to its past glory. In August 2020, a company took over 15 ships, including Thaipac Floating Restaurant, Jumbo's Fish Storage Ship, and Sewage Discharge Ship, in a bid to rebrand them into a cultural tourism project. In April this year, however, the court issued a preservation order on Thaipac Floating Restaurant, meaning the vessel cannot be restored until the relevant litigation concludes.
漏水係一個大問題先。太白呢隻船本身係一隻。
Lee Si-kit, executive director of Thaipac Floating Restaurant, said water leakage is a major problem of the boat. He noted that Thaipac is one of the filming locations of Stephen Chow's 1996 comedy movie God of Cookery, and most of its designs, including wooden carvings, can be restored. Still, some photo ops for tourists from a distance at the pier that has reopened nearby, which includes displays of Chinese art. Tourists can also take a spin out in the sea and learn about Taipac's history. While the iconic floating attraction has yet to regain its former luster, a cultural tourism project has been in the pipeline, which will integrate elements of Hong Kong's giant pandas. The management of Thaipac Floating Restaurant said they are planning to introduce fish species for public education, including one that's nicknamed water pandas, and the yellow-lipped fish or the Chinese bahaba, which Hong Kong people call the Tai-o mackerel. On December 26 or Boxing Day, a lighting ceremony and a fair will be held at the pier. Unwrapping the power of a wish in this holiday season. A non-profit organization has joined forces with the Fire Services Department in a bid to make a firefighting dream come true for a 9-year-old boy who was diagnosed with leukemia. Take a look. The firefighting squad today welcomed a new recruit, Pak Lam, who might just be 9 years old but is not fazed at all by the mission and orders at hand. From trying to maneuver the water hose to being tasked to rescue a cat. Undaunted by the height, as Pak Lam was lifted through the aerial ladder on the fire truck. And mission accomplished. Pak Lam said he waited so long for this moment and realized it's tough to be a firefighter. The 9-year-old was diagnosed with acute lymphoid leukemia when he was 6. After going through cancer treatment, Pak Lam can now go to school. One of the firefighters participating in the Make-A-Wish campaign said every child should not have their dreams limited, and they hope to give some encouragement to Pak Lam and his family through the experience. Since its establishment, the Make-A-Wish Foundation has granted the wishes of more than 2,400 sick children. Its representative said they have helped 120 children in realizing their wishes this year and are handling around 200 other cases. And that's News. Thank you for watching and have a great week ahead.